Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, your home for all content Lord of the Rings home. Today, we're going to be talking about Rumil and his kit reveal. He is the first elf, the one with the shield. It's going to be have a kit reveal for the Balin's expedition for the Shattered Timeline characters for this month. That is a mouthful, and if you have no idea what any of those words means, because you don't play the game, I guess. He's the tank guy. We're going to go through his kit. We're going to talk about what it means for the Balrog, what it means, how he fits in with some of the other dwarves. We're going to look at Bifur mostly, and then also look at how he fits in with Lord Balin. I think he's got a pretty interesting kit. We went over it in my live stream, which I just finished up, but I wanted to get a video out for that as well. So let's just hop right into it. Obviously, light, Balin's expedition, light tank elf. Balin's expedition, spear, skilled warrior. Rumil is also a master of enchantments, which aid in his work throughout Middle Earth. Okay, how does that play a role? All right, let's scroll down so you can see it. We've got the basic precision strike, and at unlock, attack the target enemy for 80% damage and 50% chance to gain one stack of defensive. Right, defensive guarantees that next block. Really good in chapter 3. Really good in chapter 4, it looks like, as well. Just having that increased amount of armor. And then at max upgrade, you get more damage, 180% damage. And instead of 50% chance, you're going to one stack of defensive. Always basically guaranteed. I don't know how much I like that. I do like that he's giving himself defensive, but I guess we'll see how much that matters. The block reduction is pretty nice. Special 2, swift strikes here. A little bit of 3-pronged attack. I gotta say, I'm not as big of a fan of the animations for these two characters as I was for some of the Gondor characters. I thought those were a lot cooler. Same with some of the Haradrim. They're fine. I just think that they're not as good as they have been. I obviously love Bifur's character design. I think the elves look pretty cool too. But in sort of my order of most impressiveness, I would say Bifur, then Orifim, and then Rumil. But let's talk about this special one here, Swift Strikes. 3-turn cooldown. You can use it on turn 1. At unlock, attack target enemy for 3 times, 55% damage, so it's a multi-hit attack. Grant 1 stack of defensive to 1 random squad member. So we're just going to continue to build defensive on defensive here. At max upgrade, attack target enemy for 110% damage, so we're increasing in damage. Grant 1 stack of defensive to all squad members. So we go from 1 random squad member to all squad members. That is massive. Yeah, because that kind of plays right into Bifur here. When a squad member gains a defensive, they have a 50% chance doubled for dwarf squad members to gain might for 1 turn. Dwarf squad members also have a 50% chance to gain 1 stack of counterattack. That's huge. So Bifur's leadership ability, interesting. I mean, it's still in play, in my opinion, here. There's nothing that's really sticks out that would... I mean, Lord Balin is specifically meant to run with these two, so there is that. But I don't think Bifur is kind of out for the count yet, I would say. But again, more defensive. Giving defensive to everybody is massive. It's going to be super important for Chapter 4 of the raid, but it also works really well in Chapter 3. This is something I mentioned on my live stream. Basically, any team that is going to be doing well in Chapter 4 is also likely going to be doing well in Chapter 3. Just because you're able to get up all this defensive utility, have all these, blocks, and the ability to cleanse, I think, is going to be especially important as well. So speaking of, Special 2, enemies at bay. Here they've got Orifim coming in, doing a little bit of a quick, cool attack. I do like that he spins the axe. 4-turn cooldown. Also still... You can use it turn 1, though. And then, I guess, ability stamina cost and at battle start reduces to rank 3, or to 3 at rank 6. So if you max this ability, you go from 4 to 3, which is crazy. That's actually... Both of his skills are going to be 3-turn cooldowns. Cleanse 1 Bane from self. Attack the target enemy for 130% damage. So it's a cleanse. He cleanses it from himself at unlock. At max description, we have 2 Banes from self and the dwarf or elf ally with the most Banes. That's huge. Attack the target enemy for 270% damage and call that same ally to assist. This is going to be really big for Chapter 3, I think, too. But obviously for Chapter 4, We haven't had a chance to play it yet, but like even just thinking about chapter 3, this is massive, right? So let's say like they have they've marked and they put capture on Lord Balin, right? He cleanses 2 Banes from himself and Lord Balin, and then Lord Balin assists, and on his basic, he's going to do another cleanse. I think this is really good. And it's 3 turns. And so, like, Lord Balin's cleanse here, also 3 turns, right? Yeah, 3 turns. So 2 3-turn cleanses. This is, I think, a little bit more useful than, say, this. Because it's just 2 Banes from self and then 1 other person, but still, that's massive. It's also because it's also a call to assist, which is going to be cool for chapter 1 as well. I think this team is going to do pretty well in chapter 1. Chapter 2, yet to see, but chapter 1, definitely. Chapter 3, looking pretty good as well. Okay, passive, Elven Safeguard. At unlock, when a dwarf or elf squad member blocks an attack, which is why he's got all this defensive, right? Defensive guarantees a block. Grant them 1 stack of regeneration for 1 turn. Crazy. Ability description at max upgrade. When a dwarf or elf squad member blocks an attack, grant them 2 stacks of regeneration for 1 turn, and then he gains 20% max health. So, seems like his passive is like getting max health and then granting 1 stack. So, like 5% max health per level, and maybe like an extra stack of 1 of regeneration for one of the levels. That makes sense. Why did I just say that 1 stack of regeneration for 1 turns is crazy? It doesn't sound crazy, right? But with the amount of defensives he's handing out, if you compare him with other people that can also hand out defensives, right? Then this becomes a big deal. You're going to be passing out a massive amount of regeneration. Because you also get regeneration for, let's see. You also get regeneration with Lord Balin. He's going to put regeneration with his cleanse here, right? That's huge. And again, I let me get to my actual point here, which is that I think regeneration is going to be an underrated way to heal in chapter 4. And so the reason I'm saying that is because there are so many aspects of chapter 4 where he's either doing like damage over time to you with burning, or his abilities trigger based, like give him like way more turn meter or just instant kill you, basically, whether you have a boon on yourself or not. And I think stacks of regeneration are just like a really good way to keep up that healing outside of having active healing, but also making sure that you're sort of safeguarding yourself, right? Against dispels that the Balrog has, and against his ability where, you know, he puts on it's like the he puts on this Shadow Beckons buff on you if you don't have a boon, and that's what leads you to the instant kill, right? So I think regeneration is a really big way to prevent that. We'll see if I'm right or not, but that's why I'm like, wow, because I think this is actually a cool ability, especially if you can slot 2 people in who have some of this defensive capabilities that they can toss out as well, right? Gimli, think Iffer, right? Those are pretty important. All right, inspiration. Little is known about Rumil or his brother Orphan besides being Sylvan Elves of Lothlorien, alongside their brother Haldir. It would be really cool to get Haldir in the future here. Were wardens of the borders surrounding Lothlorien. In later years, after the Battle of 5 Armies, all 3 would encounter the Fellowship of the Ring after their arrival in Lorien. When we meet the brothers in our Shattered timeline, they've been sent by Celeborn and Galadriel to aid Balin in his expedition to help retake the ancestral home of the dwarves, Moria. While the elves and dwarves seemed unlikely allies during this time, we explore what if the dwarves had helped the elves and the elves helped the dwarves. That is our Shattered timeline. Strategy tips. I think some of these are interesting. They always give little clues. Rumil's ability Swift Strikes is a multi-hit attack. That is particularly useful in the Mines of Moria raid, Chapter 4. Make sure you time the ability to be available when the Balrog transforms into flame form. So I did not catch this the first time when going over the Balrog. I now have been told by multiple people and understand that when he is in flame form and he has Incinerate, Incinerate is not a boon, it is not a bane, it's like one of those blue ability markers, right? Each hit removes 1 stack. I initially interpreted that as every time he does an attack, what ends up happening is Incinerate goes down by 1 every time he gets hit and every time he does an attack. So it goes down by 1 when he does his attack, but also every time you hit him. So multi-hit attacks are back to being very good again in Chapter 4 of the raid. So Chapter 1 is all about assist and team up, right? Chapter 2, multi-hit attacks are good. Chapter 3 is different. And then Chapter 4, especially for Flame Form, multi-hit attacks are really good again. So Lomian looking to be pretty useful again for Chapter 4, but also having this multi-hit attack with Rumil is going to do that as well. Enemies at bay will cleanse Banes from Dwarf and Elf squad members. Use this ability at the opportune moment in the Mines of Moria raid to cleanse the squad of Burning and Blind. That's just to make sure that you don't get more flame stacks or shadow stacks on the Balrog than you need to, because that's basically what happens. Like all Balin's Expedition members, Rumil is at home in a squad composed of dwarves or elves. Experiment with different squad combinations to find a good fit for your collection. I'm actually curious what you all think. There's some pretty obvious one. I think everybody's like Gimli, Legolas, obviously, or maybe even Feely and Keely. But do you all have some 2 members that you kind of want to run in here that you think are a little bit counter to the normal sort of stuff that we're going to see? I'm curious about that. Yeah, well, I'm very curious about that. I think also one thing here is that you notice that he's a tank, right? He has the tank tag. I'm not making that up, am I? He has the tank tag, right? He does not have Provoke. He does not have Taunt. A lot of people are wondering, why is that? What's the reason for that? I think part of that comes down to the fact that obviously it makes him less useful in Chapter 3. You can give him Provoke maybe with Biffer if Biffer's on the team. Maybe Orifim has a way to sort of move this around. But the normal attack, like the basic attack of the Balrog in his normal form, ignores Taunt and Provoke anyway. So maybe it's fine that he just doesn't have an attack that, or like a skill that gives him Provoke or Taunt, and instead he has one that cleanses and does multi-hits. Maybe that's more useful specifically just for Chapter 4, but I did think that was an interesting point that people brought that up. Yeah, I mean, he's looking pretty interesting, I should say. So when does it start? When do we get to play him? Well, 8 a.m. October 18th. Let's look at the calendar. That is next Wednesday, so 18th to the 25th. My guess is then the Orifim will go from the 25th to the 1st, and that'll sort of round out the month, our Shattered Timeline month in October here. And then we'll start on something new in November, obviously. And we are going to see Chapter 4, the 17th here, is when that is going to go live, or when it's expected to go live, I should say. And so then the day after is when you will have access to Rumil. That's all very interesting. So basically, you're going to be playing Chapter 4 and then deciding whether you want to spend money on Rumil or Orifin if you think those are going to be worth it. I'm kind of in the camp that I would have liked to seen all 3 kits beforehand, but I don't mind that they're releasing Chapter 4 first. You can maybe get your hands on it, and then you can decide whether you think these characters would be good fit for that or not. Or you can let other people sort of figure it out. I think that's better than the other situation where they say, these are going to be good, these are going to be good for this chapter, and then they release the chapter after they've already released all of these, and you go, well, okay, they weren't what I expected, right? So I actually do think that this is a better option, but I would prefer to have all their kits up front, obviously. Same standard setup for these marquee characters as you would like to see. Okay. Interesting. I'm not completely blown away, but I do think it's pretty good. I'm not as blown away as I was with Ballin, but Ballin turned out to be not exactly what I wanted. But I'm going to leave that there. Thanks for watching, and take it easy. Have a good weekend.